All right, guys, we got another bay window here with a bad windshield section. Well, it didn't look that bad when we first pulled it out, and we were kind of surprised that it didn't look that bad. But if you see right along this very edge right here, it is pretty deeply pitted, and then in a couple of places here, it's all the way through. It's all the way through here. And there's a couple real tiny pinholes along here. I mean, there's a little tiny pinhole right there. You see that little tiny pinhole in the deeper parts of the pits, and along this very edge. So if I were to clean this off, okay, it would probably just be a bunch of little holes along here. So we were kind of deciding, whether we should replace it or not. And I'm just like, you know what? We've got the metal. Let's just go ahead and do the whole thing, because he's going to keep this bus till he dies, and he's like, I need it to last at least 20 years. So if we just fix the pinholes, I think we'd be into it almost as much time as just to replace the whole section. And time is money. We're also going to clean this up and paint this portion of the dash. Use a satin finish black on it, get rid of that rust, put some treatment on there, strip it, and paint it. And we're going to color match this and try and very well coated behind here, just like we did the other one, with some good urethane product. So we're going to use Sign Industry urethane, which is the same as automotive, and we'll put that on there. We won't put clear because it's supposed to be without clear, and it still will last, and it'll hold back water and all that other stuff. It's the same as automotive paint. And then we'll fix this and make it right. So, all right, so stick around. And at some point in the video, I think I'm going to make a separate video. I'll show people how to weld for the first time that have never welded before. So if you want to watch the whole video, you can see that section in there. If you just want to watch that other video, we may post that separately. So anyway, we'll get started. Faster and better. We're going to use tape because we're going to keep the paint here. So we're not going to mark it with something that we can't. Could use a yellow marker, but I'm just going to use a little tape. And I know that's my do not cut line. So that doesn't mean that's where I'm going to cut it. That means I don't want to cut it up that high. So past that. So we'll take this off. Now I could cut this above here. I think it's still easier to cut it below and just go along there. Just cut it below and then go up. Just because sanding here is a little better than trying to sand in this little area where you've got this hump and trying to grind that. I'm going to be on an inside corner trying to weld and sand. It's easier to sand on something flat. So down here is definitely going to be easier. So we'll go with that. All right, so I always peel these, and a lot of guys go, well, you should drill them because you'll get a cleaner job. But it's actually, I don't believe that's true at all. I mean, when I drill them, often, even with a spot weld drill bit, which are flat, I'll drill all the way through, even though I'm not trying to. So I always peel them. Sometimes I have to drill them, there's no doubt about that. But I mean, you can see that you damage it a little bit, but you can just straighten it real quick. Doesn't take much to just straighten it back out. Sometimes it's actually easier to drill them, but just most of the time it's easier just to peel it. All right, so the next thing I do is these little pieces of steel that I just peeled away, I just grind those off, even these, but I don't grind the whole area. I don't want to thin down this metal. So this I'm going to clean either with a wire brush or I'll clean with stripping wheel, because then it doesn't take so much metal off. Just the welds, I'll show you right now. All right, I'm going to use my hammer and my body spoon to straighten this out. You don't want to hammer on the spoon. You hammer on the high and hold the spoon on the low. A lot of guys just hammer on the spoon. That just stretches everything. Then you'll have a mess. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to show you where I'm going to cut. I'm going to use the plasma cutter, and I'll just have my finger in this groove and I'll just cut a straight line about right here. And that's how you do that. You just use the groove as a straight line. That's why I like to cut it below. It's much easier to do. And I'll just cut that out real quick. I want to make sure that I've got more metal here than what I have cut off there. So I need it to be about, let's say right here, okay? And then we'll just go with that. Because over there I got a little too far down, it just happens. So I'm not worried about it, I'll just fix it with this. All right, so what I'm going to do now is I'm just going to mark my cut. Be right along here. So what I'm going to do now is I'm just going to cut through 2 layers. This should come out a little different than last time, because last time I had it up a little bit too high, and what that did is it made my cuts up here a little wide because it made them too high. So let's see how this works out this time, with it just laying one over the other in about the right position. And of course it's going to move a little bit as you're putting it in, but I think we'll have it pretty close, and I'll just have to maybe just do a little bit of clean up with the grinder. I might have a couple white spots in it, but I mean, there's no perfect way to do this because it's a lot of compound curve. Well, you can see now that's gone into a really clean deal there. So now all I got to do is clean the metal, and it's dropped right into place. A couple places where it's a little high or whatever, I got to pull the old metal out. I'll do all that real quick. So we didn't have much in the last time I did it either. And then the lines again are about the same as the other time. This one here's a little bit low, just like it was last time, and this one's about right in the middle, but then again it might move as we weld it in. It's gonna move. There's no way you're gonna get that line 100%, and just it's not much to fix. It's an easy fix. All right, let's just go with that. I'm gonna take it off, clean the metal. Not gonna use a grinder on it. I'm just gonna use and I'm gonna punch holes in it. Let's do some of that. I like to mark them in a different place than they were last time too. So I just kind of do them in the middles, like that. So I use one of these, and that helps to not take away so much metal, and makes it so it's a little easier to weld. Don't always use weld through primer, but on this, because there's no way to get seam sealant really in there, I just use a little bit of this stuff. I'll shake it up a little more. I'll just use a little bit of that stuff between the welds. Wherever it's welded, that's going to be gone, but I mean, it's better than doing nothing. So I'll use that, and then we'll just get ready to butt this thing in. I'll not blow too much inside the car, right? Alright, so kind of got her in place here. Of course, nothing's quite shaped exactly right, but I mean, it doesn't matter that much, really. It's just a little tiny bit off. So what I got to do is just kind of weld it and then tap it into place, and then see how this is lapped over a little bit because the cut's not perfect. You could go through and sit there and play around with this and try and get it all perfect before you butt it in, but what's going to happen is as you start to butt it, it's going to move. It's going to start going into place like this. So what I want to do is, versus trying to put it in place perfectly, I'm going to weld it in place, you know, where it's right, like right here. I know it's right there, and it's right there. Maybe push that down a little bit, right there. This is pretty well right. Clamp those down, do a few spots here, okay, and then do a few spots here, and then where there's places like right here where it's kind of not quite right, okay, then I'm gonna see right there it's hitting when I push this in, and I'll just take the cutoff wheel and clean that up and then weld it. So there's a gap between them, and if I have a gap between there, I know that I got penetration all the way through. So those are all things that this will make this a good repair, and it'll make it last, you know. And that's how it goes. On a round surface, it's not going to just fit, okay. It's going to take a little bit of work in it. So that's what I'm doing behind the scenes. When you guys may not see what's going on, that's what's happening, is I'm, you know, fitting it as I go. So I could start in the middle and go one way, I could start on the other side and go this way, but I'm going to start over here where this is lined up pretty good, because right now this side isn't. See the gap? And from past experience, as I go, it starts to get tighter here, okay, and as it gets tighter here, it goes in, and then it goes around and it goes up, so that will line up better. That's how I've done metalwork for years. I've only done this the second time doing one of these panels, but it's the same as all other metalwork. On a round thing, it's going to want to walk as you put it in. So I start over here, go that way. That's what I'd rather do. I mean, it could start in the middle. There's no doubt about it. Some guys will probably start in the middle and they'll go this way and go that way, and maybe they'll get it right. But I like to start where it lines up and then just work it and go that way, and hope my panel is made right, and I think it is. We checked the last one, it was pretty darn right on. It was really tight, really close. It wasn't perfect, but it was close enough. All right, so you see I'll line up this edge, and I have to tack that. Then after that's lined up, then I can cut this in. See how that's lapped over a little bit? I'll cut that in and cut this bottom edge in. All right, just been working my way along here, lining it up, using my screwdriver, vice grips. It's pretty well lined up, pretty good. Grind all those welds down, of course, and it looks like that. Then you give it a little filler and you're done. Right, so welding sheet metal is probably one of the most difficult things there is to do, about welding sheet metal at least. And the difficulty is that when you go to weld it, a lot of times you burn a hole, and it's just something you have to manage. It's not, you're not going to stop doing that, especially when you have a gap. You're almost always going to have points in your area where you're going to have a gap like this, okay, a little bit of a gap. And the good thing that's good about that is you're going to get penetration and a full weld all the way through, where if it's too tight, a lot of times if you don't have your heat hot enough, then it won't weld all the way through, and you'll see the seam on the other side. So, and then when you go to grind it off, you've got a very, very thin area. So it's better to have a little bit of a gap like this, all right? And the challenge of that is you're going to have more places we're going to burn through. So if you look here at this weld, you know, it's kind of burning. It's kind of burning. When I get real wide, it's burning through. So I'm using this welder, and the reason I'm using this is because it's the easiest welder to learn how to weld with. This is the Weaver MiG 130. I'll put a link in the description. It has two knobs. Really, it has one. This is heat. And the heat, when you turn this up, the wire settings, the wire feed is automatic. It's called synergic settings. So all you do is you just turn this up and down. You make sure it's on the correct kind of wire. It's on a negative ground. We are using gas. The most expensive part about this is you're going to have to buy a gas bottle and a regulator. You have to have a regulator. We set that at, normally, your normal settings for a regulator is about 15 rate of flow, 15 pounds rate of flow. And I run mine at 10 because it uses a little less gas and I still get a good weld. So that's what I do. It saves me a little bit of gas. So you need a gas bottle and a regulator. The cheapest ones, the smallest one I would recommend would be a 55, and that's going to be really small. Okay, I would at least like an 80. Okay, an 80. This is a 125 or 150. I can't remember. I have 125 and 150. I think this is the 125. So you can take it. You can take, if you buy a smaller gas bottle, you can take it in. You can trade it up, and for like $100, you can pay 100 and some odd dollars. You can pay for a bigger bottle, because otherwise you're going to be going to the store a lot and buying gas. So the gas bottle is a must to be able to learn how to butt weld. You're not going to be able to do it with flux core. All right. So all you got to do, remember the principle of welding is you're melting this surface. So you got two surfaces. You got one here and you want one here. You have to melt this surface and melt that surface and then fill the middle with wire. That's all you're doing. And the wire's kind of a filler for it, for the gap. All right. So you notice welder has, I said, one knob. This is your heat setting. It does everything. But then it has this thing here where it says minimum and maximum. And what this does, when you turn it down to minimum, it turns down the heat a little bit less and leaves the wire speed the same. So it's going to give their wire ratio is going to be a little bit higher. So you're going to have more wire per the heat setting. And when you put it on minimum, when you put it on maximum, you're going to have less wire per the heat setting. So it depends on the person welding, depends on what you're welding. But when you're welding a gap on this thing, I like to put it all the way to the minimum. When there's no gap, I'll put it just right to here at 0. So normally you're going to weld this with the machine at 0. But because we're welding up a gap, we're going to put it at minimum. I always leave my gas bottle turned off whenever I'm not using it. The key to welding is settings, and this welder makes it easier for the beginner to weld without having to know their settings, because it has one knob. One knob turns up the heat, the wire speed's automatic. It's pretty easy to use. So this one here, on this is I put it at minimum, the smallest amount of heat, because we're trying not to burn through, and we have this at the minimum. So our wire to ratio is a little bit more wire for the heat setting. It actually lowers the heat a little bit more by doing that. All right, so let's, everything's based, we do everything small tack welds. If you do too much, all you have to do is just do a little tiny tack. As soon as that wire hits the surface, you let off the trigger pretty much. You can't let it be on there very long at all. If you're burning holes, you're letting the wire, you're holding the trigger too long, okay? So the trick is just barely let it hit. It will actually be enough to get it to hold. And you try and want to get both surfaces. So sometimes when it's a real wide gap, I'll just do just this surface for a little while, and I'll build this up, and then I'll do the bottom surface, and I'll put them together. And then what I'll do is I'll kind of get in there, and I'll just kind of wiggle it to make sure I get both of them very quickly. I'll just kind of go zzz, like that. All right, I'm not going to have my gloves on or anything. I'm going to try and put the wire in the gap and just pull the trigger. See, you heard it? As soon as you hear it make that noise, take a look at it. All right? I need my reading glasses on myself. I usually have my glasses on underneath my welding helmet. See how long I held that on there? That's it. So you look there and make sure it was melting this surface and melting the surface above it. And it did. It got right in the crack. So the next thing I'll do is, again, I'm just going to do the same thing over and over and over. And what I'll do is stack the welds next to each other. You don't want to weld on top of a weld, but you want to weld right next to that one. You know, and we're not going to talk about warpage right now. On a round warpage thing, warpage is not going to be much of an issue when it's round. But you should just do a few welds here, a few welds here, a few welds there. Okay. Technically, you should only just do one. But we're talking about, we got like 10,000 welds to do. And I don't have the patience for that. To sit there and do one here, one there, one here, one, you know. Nobody's going to give you enough money to do that. Okay. So, if you want to do it that way, that's up to you. So I'm going to go right next to that weld, and I'm going to angle my tip towards the other weld, but still in the same crack. So you can see my wire sticking out. I want the gun very close, because you need the gas to get in there. And I'm just going to go. Notice how I move the gun up and down? Very quickly. Okay, that's enough welds for that. That should grind down and be perfect. And what I'm trying to do is I'm using the angle towards the other weld, so that when I weld into that weld, it's actually a little bit thicker than the sheet metal. So it's going to help me not burn through as much. So that's a little section I've done there. Now I'm going to show you, you're going to run into places where there's a large gap. You can see there's a very large gap right here. So you're going to end up with that. When you when you make a hole, you're going to end up with a situation, the same thing. You're going to do this the same way. So if you get a hole going, then I have my reading glasses on so I can really see. My biggest problem is I can't see very good anymore. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to focus on just getting weld on this side. So I'm going to go shorter time period. Then I'll put a little bit of weld on this side. You notice how then I made it go to both sides. Alright, so I just do a few welds on one side, shorter, then I'll just go to the other side. So it's just shorter time period. And once I get enough weld on there, then I'll give it a little bit longer hold. And it will still get plenty of penetration. Let's grind it off and we'll take a look at it. It's a little moundy looking, but that's okay. Grind this off and look at it. Right, so instantly we've ground that off. Give that a little check with the hammer and see if the crack is there. And you also see if you made any voids. You'll look for little pinholes in it, and you just touch those up. You see that wider gap right there? That tells me I was getting it pretty hot. All right, let's see if I can get you guys up a little closer to look at that. That was getting a little bit hot, which is fine. That tells me I'm getting penetration. So even this welder, when you have it turned down that low, it has enough heat that it will penetrate with that short of a stroke. In most welders, if you hit it that short a period of time, it's not going to stick. This welder does. It actually works really good for butt welding, even though it uses .030 wire and it only has a small spool and it's plastic feed system. It actually works really well. So those wider gaps just take a little bit more finesse, a shorter time period, and it works perfectly. So if you've never welded before, you could probably learn how to butt weld with this machine pretty quickly. Because again, welding is all about the settings, and the machine does that for you. All you got to do is go, if it's too cold, if you need more heat. So if you're welding thick metal, I'll do a little spot of that for real quick. But most guys are going to be doing sheet metal, okay? So, but we're going to do a little bit thicker metals to show you how you can do that as well in this video. All right, so we've got a piece of 1/8 inch steel and a piece of 3/16 steel. It's, you know, a lot of guys only show like that they're welding the like to like, you know, a 3/16 is 3/16. Almost always you're going to have some variation of different sizes of steel. All right, you're not always going to have the same thickness. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go for the 3/16 steel. I'm going to turn this up. The 3/16 is going to be what I need to penetrate into. So I'm going to turn it up all the way. It's at a 130 amp. All right. So let's do that. Again, we're going to put this back to 0, and that's where you normally will keep it, except when you're doing butt welding sheet metal. So welding the thicker steel, we want our settings to be for the thicker piece, not the thinner one. We're going to melt the thin one into the thick one, and we're going to probably use a little less wire. I could turn down the wire speed a little bit to do this by pushing it to the, what is it called, maximum. Will slow down the wire speed and turn up the heat. So I could do that and it would help a little bit, but I'm just going to go with the 0, and it'll probably still make a weld that holds. Let's check it out. It's too much for my circuit breaker. I just blew the circuit breaker. We're going to continue on now. Yep, we already got a weld there, so it's a little ugly. May not make such a pretty weld, but it'll still hold. All right, you can see that's pretty well melted. Let's take a look at it. So this little cheap welder actually melted that pretty well. Yeah, it's not so pretty because obviously the circuit breaker blew like right in the middle, but that's a strong holding weld right there. You can see it melted pretty well. You're not going to melt all the way through a 3/16 with a welder like this, but that's deeply penetrated. It welded all the way through this one. You can see the edge of that's just gone. It melted it in. So like I said, I could turn down the wire speed a little bit, and that would make it a little less moundy and a little more melty, and it'd be a little nicer looking. Maybe we can do another one here. Let me reset this and I'll bring you back in. So when you weld two different thicknesses of, or you're welding two pieces of thicker steel together, you want to be sure to go slower and around in circles or back and forth, because you want to make sure that this piece welds to that piece. So you want to get this one hot and that one hot. So you kind of want to do this or like circles. I used to always use circles, but you can do it either way. Some guys use a U shape and just go nice and slow. The whole thing is, on a thick steel you want to go slow, on a thin steel you want to go very short spurts, which are called stitches. This is dirty, so it's a little, that's why it sounds kind of weird. It's still welding it. Again, not the prettiest weld. I'm not going to be doing that much of this, but if you can see, that is melted. It's melted both surfaces of the metal. You can see the heat coming through on this side. You can actually see it burning all the way through. Right at the very edge, right there, it's welding all the way through that piece of 1/8 inch. This little welder is actually capable of welding pretty thick steel. Again, it doesn't sound pretty, doesn't need to. It's just doing the job, and it doesn't sound like crispy like your other welders might. But this, again, this is just, you know, this is a inexpensive welder that does the job pretty well. So it's a good starting point. And to me, it's, you know, yeah, it's cheap. When I was moving this thing around, the ground came out of here, so I had to recrimp it. So, you know, it's not in a really expensive machine, but it's a great learning machine, and you could probably use it for years before you'd ever had issues, you know, that you're going to want to replace it. You'll probably like it so much that you'll be like, hey, you know what, I think I'll just keep that one. Let's weld this area up, same thing. Not even cleaned. I'm out of wire. I just heard the machine run out of wire. So anyway, that's it for this portion. It's capable of welding pretty thick. Look at how much it got into that 3/16. So you can see the melt on there, how much it melted in. So yeah, it's getting great penetration. And again, welding thick steel is pretty easy. You just go slower. And you're not going to be worried about burning holes. You're just worried about getting it hot enough. By going slower, you're getting more heat on it, and that heat's going to help it penetrate better, and that's going to help your weld last or hold better. So anyway, I'll go get some wire in this thing, and we'll continue on with the rest of the other video, showing everybody this whole butt welding series. All right, so this has got, all this has been counted. It's just a little bit of waviness to it, of course, because I didn't, you know, do one here and then one here and then go back here. No, I'm not doing that. When you got 10,000 welds to do and something that's round, I say filler will do the rest, and it's not that much. So we'll get some on here and get her rolling. Right, so here's where we're at now. I shot this once and it was way too red. The yellow I have, I just don't have the right stuff to do it. So anyway, the yellow I had was a green yellow, really kind of green. really was a green, but with a lot of yellow in it. And so when I added that to the color, I mean, I literally started with a color that's a million miles different than this, right? So just kind of had to use scraps and make it. Had the yellow, it would turn way too green. It was like really bright green, and then I had to add red, and boy, red will take it, you know, will kill the green in it real quick, but it also takes it just orange in a second. So it kind of went that way, and then I couldn't really tell because I'm trying to match, you know, a little spot, the dot, and then when you spray it, you know, it looks different, and then when you put it on, it's wet, and then it dries. So this has a lot of oxidation on it on this side. This side here is cleaned. I cleaned this side. This is where I was matching right here, trying to get the color close. And I spray here and then blend. Kind of blends in okay, but you know, it's a little different. That's fine. Good enough. I mean, if you can see over here, it looks like it matches better than over here, right? Yeah. So anyway, it's just it needs another polish on here. So anyway, ain't gonna get perfect. We're not looking for that. I just don't want it to be like a totally different color, which it might be, but it's close enough so that when you put the windshield in, it won't rust behind here. That's the whole object of this. So, and then we got this painted here. This is actually satin. It'll die down a little bit more than this, and this was really rusty, and I shot a DTM sealer and then painted it with single stage urethane. This is single stage urethane satin colors. So it's just scrap paint. So like I said, you know, scraps, I don't have exactly what I need all the time. So you can see the chalkiness on this whole side is all chalky. So I'm matching the color that's underneath the chalk. So anyway, it's in there. So, I mean, it's not right, but it's good enough. You guys tell me in the comments. You know, maybe I'm a little off, but again, it's really hard to get those colors. The hardest colors are those beige grays, or I always have trouble with them. So anyway, they're always tough. It either goes too green or too red, and yeah, I have trouble finding the medium in there because that's what all I have to match it with. I don't have, you know, usual black, yellow, red. You know, that's kind of what is in the color. And the red kind of kills the green, and the black usually makes the green, you know, the black has blue in it, so you add the yellow to the black and it turns a little bit too green, then you fire with it. Well, this one was a little bit worse than that, and then the yellow, like I said, was too yellow, and you had to add more red to kill it, and it just was tough. So anyway, but it looks good enough. I mean, it's painted. Windshield gonna go in. I don't have the rubber here, so I can't do that yet. We're gonna put the chrome in. Hey, I'll just do a window video, just putting up just the window, putting in the window with the chrome, and then we'll go from there and see. Yeah, it blends in together. I mean, it looks like, see the patina. You know, I left the patina here, and all I did was just clean this really good with acetone. People go, oh, it won't stick. Yeah, it does. It'll stick great, believe it or not. Clean it really good. It's already dulled because it's, you know, old paint. And I just masked this area off right here. Let it kind of, I didn't try and cover that with paint. I just tried to get it just enough on there and let it kind of fade away. I could have done a complete patina match and painted this red first with a red oxide, and then painted it with this color, and then sanded it, and color sand it, and then let it come through the red. And I could make that look exactly like it did, but I really was kind of pressed for time, so I just went, you know what, let's just blend it and call it good, and paint this little area here. There was like a gray spot there because the other color, I made this color a long time ago, and look at how much it faded. It just turned into primer gray, kind of almost looks a little blue, weird. That's where I had touched up all these things before, so I still have paint like this left over, and I'd say that's a little closer than this, right? So I could go through and retouch all that. Maybe we'll do that and retouch like we did all these little, I mean, it was just, this thing looked horrible. It had driven through a fence, and we did like a cleanup on it, but I just used spray cans. This is Krylon, mixed them together and made the color, and it looked pretty darn close before, but then it just faded, you know, because it's Krylon. It's not really meant for outside. This is an outside paint. It'll probably last for years and years, probably 5 to 10 years in the sun. So it'll fade in and start to look like that. So anyway, that's it, guys. I'll talk to you in the next one. It's kind of gone on too long. Please like, share, and subscribe, and let me know, share your thoughts on that. I'll talk to you next one.